5 silent moves that make her regret losing you. She won't expect this. Most men think regret comes from words. So when things go wrong in a relationship, or when a woman pulls away, they immediately feel the need to do something. They start texting more. They start explaining themselves. They start trying to remind her of what she's losing. They think, if I just say the right thing, she will understand. But in reality, the more they try to fix it with words, the more they confirm the distance. Because attraction doesn't respond to explanations. It responds to behavior. And when your behavior changes after emotional loss, so does her perception of you. So instead of chasing, begging, or over-explaining, there are silent moves that completely shift how she sees you over time. Not instantly, not through arguments, but through observation, distance, and change in behavior. And most women don't expect this because most men never do it correctly. So let's break it down. 1. The moment you stop chasing emotionally after she pulls away. There's always a moment where you feel the shift. She used to reply fast. Now she doesn't. She used to show interest. Now she's distant. She used to initiate conversations. Now she doesn't. Most men panic here. For example, you send a message. She replies hours later. Instead of adjusting, you send another message. Are you busy? Did I do something? Hello. And when she doesn't respond again, you feel worse, so you send even more. But when a man understands this dynamic, he does something different. He stops, not out of anger, not to play games, but because he recognizes the pattern. So in real life, the messages stop coming from his side. He doesn't follow up again. He doesn't try to restart something she slowed down. At first, nothing changes externally, but internally the dynamic shifts, because now there is silence where there used to be pursuit. And silence does something powerful. It forces observation. When there is no chasing, she is no longer reacting to pressure. She is reacting to absence. And absence creates curiosity. 2. He returns fully to his own life without announcing anything. After emotional distance, most men slow down their entire life. They sit with their phone. They replay conversations. They wait for something to change. But a different type of man does not do that. For example, a man who used to constantly check his phone after waking up now wakes up and goes straight into his routine. He goes to work. He hits the gym. He focuses on his goals, not to show off, not to prove anything, but because his life continues regardless of emotional uncertainty. So while she might expect emotional collapse or constant attempts to reconnect, what she slowly observes is different. She notices, you are not constantly available anymore. You are not reacting quickly anymore. You are not emotionally waiting anymore. And that creates a strange shift in perception, because she expected pause, but she sees continuation. And continuation without her presence creates reflection. 3. When she reappears, he is no longer emotionally predictable. After distance, there is often a moment where she returns. Maybe a simple message. Hey, how are you? I've been thinking. Most men respond instantly with emotion. Overexcitement. Long replies. Immediate emotional reconnection. But a man who has changed does something different. He does not rush. For example, he replies calmly. I'm good. Hope you are too. No emotional overflow. No urgency. No attachment to the outcome. In real life, this creates confusion because she expected familiarity, but she gets emotional neutrality instead. And now she starts thinking, he's different now. Why is he not reacting like before? Has he moved on emotionally? And when someone's behavior no longer matches your expectation, you start paying attention more closely. Not because they are chasing you, but because they're no longer emotionally available the same way. 4. She begins to notice changes without being told anything. One of the strongest shifts happens when you stop explaining yourself. Most men try to communicate change. I've grown. I've changed. Understand things now. But words don't register as change. Life does. For example, she checks your social media and notices. Different lifestyle, different routine, less emotional posting, more focus, less attention seeking. Or she interacts with you and notices. Shorter, calmer replies. less emotional dependence, less urgency in communication. You didn't announce anything. You didn't explain anything. But she feels it. And when someone feels change without being told, it creates uncertainty, because now she cannot categorize you easily anymore. You are no longer the same predictable version she remembers. And unpredictability creates mental reevaluation. 5. Access to you is no longer unlimited. Before emotional distance, access was easy. She could text anytime. She could get emotional attention easily. She could come and go without consequence. But now something has shifted. You're not unavailable out of spite. You're just no longer emotionally open on demand. For example, if she texts late at night, expecting full engagement, you respond later or not immediately. If she reaches out inconsistently, you match that inconsistency. If she becomes distant, you don't fill the gap anymore. So over time, something changes. The emotional, always available version of you disappears. And what replaces it is structure, boundaries, and calm distance. And when access changes, perception changes. Because what used to be guaranteed is now uncertain. And uncertainty forces attention. At the end of the day, none of this is about trying to make someone feel regret. Because regret cannot be forced. It is not created by emotional messages. It is not created by reminding someone of the past. It is not created by trying to convince someone of your value. Regret happens in contrast. It happens when someone remembers a version of you and then sees a completely different version of you after distance. And that comparison is what triggers reflection. Not your words, your absence, your silence, your change in behavior. Because when a man chases after being ignored, he confirms one reality. Nothing has changed. But when a man stops chasing and continues his life, something different is communicated. Something has changed. And that is where perception begins to shift. Because now she is no longer interacting with someone who is emotionally dependent on her response. She is interacting with someone who has a life outside of her reaction. And that alone changes the dynamic. Because attraction is not just built on presence. It is built on how your absence is perceived. When your absence feels like loss, it creates reflection. When your presence feels like pressure, it creates distance. And when your behavior is calm, consistent, and independent, it creates curiosity. But the most important shift is internal. Because once a man stops chasing emotionally, he stops losing himself in the process. He stops overthinking every interaction. He stops reacting to every small change. He stops measuring his worth based on attention. And instead, he starts observing life differently. He focuses on direction instead of reaction. He focuses on growth instead of validation. He focuses on stability instead of emotional chaos. And that is where real power comes from. Not from forcing outcomes, not from chasing attention, not from trying to be chosen, but from becoming someone who no longer collapses when attention shifts. And when that happens, you don't need to say anything. Your silence already communicates everything. Follow for more if you want to understand women better.